So can you talk a little bit about why why you would shift after the Genius of Jesus to Mind Shift? Like why that's important? It almost feels like the departure album for you, you know?
It's my Beatles White Album.
The Beatles White Album, right?
And, I think when you look at like most of the books in the Christian world are, of course, written to Christians. And so it assumes faith. And my books are always sort of a bridge book. They're a book filled with tension. It's both for the person who believes and the person who doesn't believe. And I always write with that in mind. But if you're looking at a bridge, I've always tried to make my books the part of the bridge where a person can find their way to faith and help them make sense of life.
Right.
But I haven't written a book really other than Soul Cravings that builds the other half of the bridge where the person who's not searching for God yet can actually be spoken to where they're at in their life about what they're dealing with, what they're going through. And then in a sense, the common wisdom will open them up to some greater insights. And it's a huge part of my life. I spend so much of my life in conversations with people who do not believe in God, helping them solve life problems, helping them figure out how to scale their business, or helping them try to figure out how to save their marriage, or helping them figure out how to deal with their own like demons and shadows and struggles and pain. And so a lot of my life is actually coaching people and destroying internal limitations.
I love that.
So that they could actually live more holistic lives. And that's a part of the journey I use to help people come to faith, because then they come back to me and go, how could you know this? Where'd you get this insight? How could you understand this about me? And it just becomes a natural journey to help people understand who Jesus is and my relationship with him. And
you've really always been, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No, please.
You've really always been a subculture guy though. Like,
always.
Where I think maybe the larger audience of people who do believe have been frustrated with you at times is because you won't blatantly say the words that they need you to say to make them feel comfortable.
Yes.
And I hate that about you. And I also love it about you. Mm-hmm. But you've always been like that, because you're like, look, the moment I think for you, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's always been about depth for you. That if the moment they open that book, that they're scratching the surface of who you are as a character, as a human being, as an author, a writer, a father, a dreamer, all of these things, as an artist, as a businessman. And if there's nothing for them to go deeper in, then why would they keep journeying with you? Yeah. And you kind of, if you go deeper on anything, you know exactly where your faith is. You know exactly what you believe in. You don't hide it in this book. You're really teaching mental principles that you've learned, I think, from 30, 40, 50 years of your journey with Jesus and everything else you've studied in your life, psychology and business, and really presenting this going like, I'm trying to make a mental shift and a mental breakthrough for people, whether you believe in Jesus or don't, but this is how I found these things. And I think it's beautiful, because I've watched you now starting to consult, and as we were building this company, you're really you said something this last week, you said, I really, even when people think it's business, it really starts in the personal. Yeah. That even when they think it's leadership, it really starts in what's going on inside of them, what's going on at home. Yes. And can you talk a little bit about, one, I want to get into some mind shifts, but before we go there, I listened to this really interesting podcast. This guy named Michael Mogul, and the Michael Mogul podcast just randomly aggregated on my Spotify, or TikTok actually. He was interviewing this ex-con. His name is Andre Norman, who spent I want to say he spent 20 years in prison, and he was the third highest shot caller in the state penitentiary of New Jersey, I think. And he basically said that he had a moment where he was like, I'm going to become the number one shot caller in the whole prison system. Wow. But to do that, I have to do X, Y, Z. And if I do that, I'll never get out. And so he decided to go get his education, apply to Harvard. I think maybe even, I'm not sure if he applied while he was in prison. The story is fascinating. He kind of walks through why and how he reformed, changed his entire life inside of prison. And I kept the entire time going, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. It's a mind shift. It's a mind shift. It's a mind shift. He had that mental mind shift. But he said a couple of things. He said he had to identify what inside of him was stopping his dream from happening
Mm.
and how he made that mind shift. So maybe at some point we can talk about how do you make that mind shift from, what is the thing that's stopping you from actually engaging in the dreams that you have. But really it made me think of, there's so much evidence in this book. And I always find that like you write the book and then the evidence starts coming.
Yeah.
And then I almost wish that you wrote the second version of the book after we find even more evidence in the world that happens. And I think that's kind of the beautiful growth of the things that you write. It's almost this very prophetic, future-oriented way of writing your content.
Yeah, when I wrote Uprising 20 years ago, it was fundamentally a book about the human side of divine change. And I basically set certain assumptions or principles that at that time seemed to be almost outlandish, and now science has validated everything I've written in that book.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really exciting that when you create, because I'm far more of a social anthropologist than I am even a theologian, even though I am a theologian.
Right.
And what I really want people to understand is how God has created them as human beings.
Right.
And so in Uprising, I wanted people to understand how humans change.
Right.
Because most of our change, when we think of people of our faith, is almost magical. We just think that we just change. Oh,
right.
Can I go on a little tangent on this?
Yeah, go for
little
it.
Side note.
Yeah,
I
go.
watched an Instagram today.
Yeah.
It came up, and the guy was talking about his ayahuasca trip using psychedelics, and how, and he was advocating psychedelics, saying, psychedelics have helped me remove the ego in my life. Psychedelics have helped me deal with my narcissism and my arrogance and my self-consumption. And now I'm a centered person. I don't have ego, and I'm healthy because of psychedelics. And when I was watching this today, and it's interesting because I've already written about ayahuasca in my book. It's in, I think, chapter 1.
What's the title of that chapter?
Oh no, it's a different chapter. It's called "Talent is a Hallucinogen," and
so good.
And when I was watching this, I thought, this is the secular version. I'm going to say this is going to be a little controversial. This is the secular version of Pentecostalism. That psychedelics are the non-Christian version of Pentecostalism, because both of them are looking to experiences to bring the substantive change that we need. And experiences do not actually eliminate ego, only character does. And hallucinogens will not make you the person you need to become. Only choices make you the person you need to become. And so when I hear people talking about ayahuasca, and I hear people talking about psychedelics and how this will help you get centered, help you be free of ego, help you become a more whole person, I'm going, you are a unbelieving Pentecostal, because you believe Pentecostalism teaches you that these experiences are what changes you. So it's speaking in tongues and the baptism of the Holy Spirit and being slain in the Spirit, and these revivals and awakenings, and even we're talking about the Asbury revival. There's a whole stream of Christianity that believes that experiences are what actually change you. And that's why you put so much weight in those experiences. But those same people would say psychedelics are terrible. That ayahuasca, of course, will not make you a better person. You have to realize they're exactly the same thing. They're mirror images, because you believe an experience will change you. An experience can give you the material from which you can change, but only choices change you. And if you actually go into an experience where you lose your free will and you lose the mastery over your choices, that change will not be sustainable. You need that experience to keep you changed, because the choices didn't change you.
Interesting. But some could say that you chose to try to make a change by doing ayahuasca.
It's true. Right. But you're looking for an experience to change things that have to be structurally changed. See, that's why I wrote Mind Shift, is that there are internal structures that have to be changed for us to become different. And we keep hoping it's some magic formula, some magic potion. I can drink the potion and I'll be different. And I can have this experience and I'll be different. And frankly, that's why a lot of Christianity does not work. It's because we keep looking for Jesus to keep giving us these esoteric experiences. He's our psychedelic, rather than realizing that what changes us are the choices that create the internal structures that shape our life. And so in Mindshift, I have 12 structures that have to be shifted for you to be optimally the person that God created you to become. And I just think this is really important because we want fast, easy change.
Wait, does that say that anywhere on the book, 12 structures that need to change?
I don't know, but I'm saying it now.
Wait, but actually though?
Yeah, I talk about 12 structures. Yeah, because the whole opening chapter is talking about internal structures.
Right, but nowhere does it, but it doesn't say that black and white.
That,
this is why I love when we do this, because then we get the black and white out of you.
and the structures are true for everyone. And this is the frustrating thing for people who have deep faith, is that we want to say, oh, no, people only change if they have a genuine faith in Jesus. And the truth is that there are people who actually believe in God who never change. People who believe in Jesus who never change.
Right.
Because they do not make the choices that change the internal structures. And there are people who do not believe in God who do change.
Okay.
And that's confusing to us.
Right.
But people without God can actually change for the better, because biblical principles are true across the board.
Right.
Just like natural principles across the board. If you believe in God and you believe in gravity, gravity works. And if you don't believe in God and you don't, and then gravity still works. And if you believe in gravity, it works. And if you don't believe in gravity, it works. Gravity works because it's real. Your belief has no effect on gravity. And biblical principles are the exact same way. Even if you don't believe in God, even if you don't believe in the Bible, even if you don't believe in Jesus, the principles still hold up. If you live a lie, it will destroy your soul. If you live the truth, it will make you healthier. This is just reality. And and those principles, and that's one of the reasons I love Judaism and why I've spent so much of my life studying the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is a book that not only tells us who God is, but it tells us how we're designed as human beings and how we can live life best.